Hey everybody, it's JD Goff, and today we're going to be discussing tools that actually help us be better writers. And I'm talking about multifunction applications that allow you to do more than just write your manuscript. So these are programs that might give you the ability to plot better or analyze your writing or give you the ability to lay out your final draft before publishing. So when I began my writing career, there were no self-publishing companies. It wasn't possible except through Vanity Press and it costs thousands of dollars. Now, today, it's as easy as uploading a file and just clicking publish, which means the slush pile is moved out of the publishing company and onto the internet. And if you're not familiar with the traditional publishing industry, let me explain why that's important. The slush pile was a place where manuscripts went to die. Publishers got far more manuscripts every year than they could ever publish. And to put this in context, let's look at DAW, a publisher I'm familiar with. A DAW would receive upwards of 100,000 manuscripts a year. And out of those submissions, DAW might publish 10 books. That's it. 99.99% of manuscripts never reach the editor's desk. First readers, usually interns, would select a manuscript and just read through the first couple of sentences. And based on that, they make a decision whether to reject it or move it on to the next stage. Their job isn't to find a great manuscript, it's to eliminate the bad ones. And there are a lot of bad ones. But now the slush pile is on the internet, and Amazon doesn't have first readers who look at and reject the bad ones. Everything gets published. And that's the position we're in as independent publishers. Those hundreds of thousands of books are burying the few good books that are getting published, our books. So anything that makes your work stand out, from cover design to interior layout to good writing, is something that we should be investing in. And since I've already invested the time and money on some of this stuff, maybe I can save you some. So I'm focusing on tools that can do more than one thing, at least one of which is word processing. So while sites like Hemingway can analyze your writing, they can't produce a finished product. And that's the key here. A tool that you can plot with, write in, and put out a PDF and EPUB file for publication. To qualify for the list, they have to be able to do at least two of those three things. So additionally, they need to run on any platform. So that eliminates Vellum and Scrivener. I'm not going to be recommending any of these per se, one over the other, because what you need might differ from what I need. And if there's money involved, I don't want you spending something that you can't use. So what I'm going to try to do is go over the features of each, review the pros and cons of each, and then leave it to you to decide which any of these tools meet your needs. The three programs we're looking at are REEDSY, AUTOCRIT, and ATTICUS. Each has their own strengths and weaknesses, and I'm going to focus on what those are so that you know what you're getting. And I'll be breaking everything down to like in 6 categories. It's going to be cost, word processing capabilities, plotting and planning, analytics and reporting, and then typesetting and layout and publishing. I said six, I meant five. So let's take a look at the software that we're going to be working with. The first one we're going to look at is reedsy.com. Let me switch over to the laptop. So the first thing to be aware of is the cost, and REEDSY is free. Okay, so pretty straightforward. REEDSY's word processor is basic, but you have no choice of font. And one of the things you'll notice right up here, you don't even have formatting options up here on the top. And that's because in order to format, you have to highlight. And once you highlight something, it does become available. It does have a chapter menu over here that you can use to manage your front matter. Copyright, table of contents are all that it has in there. And then your back matter, which is going to include the author, the about the author, and the other works that you have. Let's see. There is a built-in spell checker, but there's no grammar checker. So let me talk about some of the stuff over here on the right. So I did mention the spell checker, which is over here, just a basic spell checker. Up here, you do have your goals and your insights, which allows you to set goals and track how you're doing with meeting those goals. It's got a little calendar for the week that you can kind of see. And you can also see your word count right here and what the reading time is. So it gives you some information right there. The other thing we have, which is tied to plotting and planning, is the ability to pin notes to sections of text or your chapter. You can also track changes in comments. This is for collaboration purposes, which is kind of nice so you can work with others if you want. This will track your changes right in here as well, so you can turn that on and see what changes have happened. You do have a writing timeline, which will show you your writing history, when you've written and for how long. You have an option to find and replace, which is pretty standard. Pretty much all these tools have that. There's a spelling check, which I already mentioned. You have an option to insert, and you can insert an image, an endnote, or a scene break. Then you have your option to split the chapter you're working on or delete the chapter you're working on. And then this is your export function. And I'll talk more about that later, but it's where you publish your book and take all your formatting styles and create a book file that's ready for publication. Right down here, you have your share option, which allows you to collaborate with individuals. So maybe you're collaborating with an editor or another author, and this allows you to share what you're working on with them. All right, let's look at the plotting and planning feature. REEDSY's plotting and planning feature is right over here, and it's fairly basic. It's simple, but it's effective. It uses an index card style that is structured in the 3-act format. It does provide a template already in place after the fashion of the hero's journey and uses the Hobbit to kind of illustrate how the hero's journey is broken down. So that kind of acts as a little bit of a lesson on how to use the 3-act schema. Analytics is fairly limited to, let's go back up here, to what you've got up here in your goals and your insights and in your writing timeline. So you don't have a lot, but you can set writing goals and track how well you met them. There's no real tools for analyzing your style or your technique or doing a comparative analysis. Like I said, it does have a built-in spell checker, but there is no grammar checker. So let's talk about now publishing and typesetting and doing your interior layout and design. And you actually access that from over here. Click on export book and it will take you to the settings where you can actually configure your book, but you are limited to what you can do. This is fairly rudimentary. You do have the two output files that are going to be required for ebooks and print, which is PDF and EPUB. You'll notice in here you are limited to your book, your formatting options. You can either hide the chapter numbers or make them visible, or you can drop caps, make them start at the beginning of the chapter, or you can make them just be standard straight up. You can also determine where you want your endnotes to go, and that's at the end of the book or in a separate chapter themselves or at the end of the page. You do have 4 trim sizes, which are 6x9, 5.5 by 8.5, 5x8, and 4.25 by 6.87. That's not very many. There are a lot more options available out there, but those are what are available to you in here. You have 3 templates, and it does change a little bit about how your book looks, but this is all the templates you have. Talking about the metadata, which is fairly limited in REEDSY, is where you're going to put your title. Metadata is what goes in and is embedded in the book, an ebook, so that when you open the book, it gives information there and it makes it easier to find. So you can put in your title and your subtitle, and that's pretty much it. There's no place for ISBN. You can add your book cover so that you'll have a digital book cover for your book, but those are the only options that you have available for the metadata. So REEDSY, just going over the pros, REEDSY has a lot of professional services. Let's look at those real fast, just so you know what I'm talking about. So if you go to marketplace, there's a lot of professional services for editing and design and publicity, marketing, translation, so you can translate your book into a different language. They have ghostwriting services. They have web design and administration and reviews. So it offers a lot of third-party services. They are third party. They don't come from REEDSY. They come from external contractors. I can't vouch for any particular service provider, but they do have a quality control. They don't just accept anybody, which is kind of nice. It does have a decent, but not really a robust plotting tool. It's probably the most used plotting tool, the index card format system. So if you're comfortable with that, that's something you can use. Word processor is pretty much standard with the basic formatting options, with the exception that you can't select fonts. It is web-based, so it will work on Windows, Mac, and Chromebook, and it does have the ability to attach notes to chapters, which is kind of a nice feature. The cons are it does have limited formatting options, so you really can't do a lot. You have 3 templates, and you can't do a lot in doing the layout and design. That's what I mean by formatting options. Your layout and design is limited. You have limited trim sizes. There's only 4 of them, and you have limited templates which aren't customizable. You have 3 templates, and they are set in stone. It only works online, which means you cannot work offline, and you are limited to one font for everything. REEDSY is probably best for people who are looking for an editor or a designer, or maybe somebody to help them with their marketing, or maybe to translate their book. REEDSY would be good for that. Like I said, they're all provided by third-party contractors. It does have a lot of courses as well as those services. Some of the courses that it has, you can go over here to learning and you'll see what I'm talking about. How to self-edit your book, Amazon ads for authors. Again, you'll notice most of these are business centric. They're not really telling you how to write, but how to market your book. But they do have a good number of courses. These aren't free, and they are provided by different contractors. You can click on the course and you see that they do have prices associated with them, and you can find out how much they cost. Some are free, like I said, some cost. I haven't taken any of the courses, so I can't speak to the quality of them. You should do your homework is what I'm saying, basically. READSY does vet the providers to maintain quality, but you should do your homework before hiring anybody anyway. I think READSY is best suited for someone who has a finished manuscript or a manuscript in its late stages who's looking for help to take their book to the next level. All right, let's look at AUTOCRIT next. So AUTOCRIT actually has two plans. They have a free plan and a paid plan with two payment options. AutoCrit has a free version, and then they also have a paid version. It looks like they have two different paid versions, but they don't. It's just whether you pay monthly, which is $30 a month, or $360 a year, or you can drop one lump sum for $180 and you get the same plan, no extra stuff, but you save 50%. The free plan provides a lot of functionality. You get a full feature word processor, word processing software. You get almost all the same tools you do with the paid subscription. The paid one tends to have a little bit higher quality. Text to speech is higher quality. Uh, but the free version, really, I think it's sufficient for most users. You also get a lot of in-depth reports, and you get a discount on their courses. So there are some advantages, but the free version is very robust and it offers a lot of functionality. Like REEDSY, AutoCrit has a really well organized homepage. And on the left, you actually have four options that get you the different things. And I'll talk more about those later. But let's jump into the word processor for right now. And you can get to that by going to the writer's desk. And that takes you right to where your files are, and you just go ahead and open up one of your files. I'm gonna go ahead and do that real fast. Or you can create a new one, or you can upload if you want to. So I'm going and start in here, and it has a robust word processor. You can see right here, one of the first things you'll notice, all that stuff is up on top, so you don't have to highlight the text like you do in REEDSY. And you do have an option to select from some fonts. But it is a limited number of fonts, and that has to do with licensing purposes. These are all licensed or in the public domain. You can change your font size as well. That was an option that was missing in REEDSY as well. But then you have your bold, your italic, you have all that kind of fun stuff. You can add special characters. You have text color and highlight color, and you can remove the formatting. You can add images, and then right down here gives you more options like substrike and alignment and bullets and things like that. So it's a pretty robust word processor that you can get a lot of stuff done in. So in addition to the word processor, you do have some features that help you in your writing. So you have up here a word count, which will show your total word count. Also shows you if you added any words or if you deleted any words, it shows you that. There is a timer that you can have it count up or count down. You can have it play music. It's kind of cool. Then you have your pacing, which tells you how many words per minute you are writing, and you can set that and see if you're meeting your goal. And then your focus meter, which tells you how much time you spend in AutoCrit as opposed to other stuff on your computer. So there's a full screen option that you can click on right here that sets it to full screen and gets rid of all the distractions. You have your save option. I forgot notes. You have notes here, which allow you to pin notes to a particular chapter, which is kind of cool. You have your save option, and the save options are pretty cool. You can save just what you're working on. You can save a copy. You can look at your version, so you can go back to an earlier version of something. You can make AutoCrit available offline, so it saves the document offline, and you can work on it locally. Submissions is pretty cool. This is where you can track submissions to your any publications you're submitting to. And then you have an option to share out, which allows you to collaborate with maybe an editor or a co-author or somebody that you're working with, maybe a consultant who's giving you advice on some science stuff or some medical stuff. Then you have down here, you have your import and export options. And this is kind of a cool feature. You can export everything out as an individual chapter. Then you can, of course, export it as a PDF and as an EPUB. That's your final publishing options. I'll be talking more about those in just a second. This is your import. This allows you to bring stuff in, and you can actually choose any files that you have in AutoCrit already, or you can go to upload. And the options are docs file, a rich text file, or a plain text file. REEDSY only allows you to upload the docs file, if I remember correctly. Just drag it in there and you're good to go. You have the ability to add bookmarks, which is pretty cool. So if you can save where you're working at, or if you want to go back and look at something later on, you can actually add a bookmark at any point and go back and revisit it if you want to. And you can add a note. Working with notes and bookmarks helps you kind of come back to an earlier part in your story and do something that you wanted to do later. They do have a thesaurus and a dictionary function, but they only work in the paid version, so I'm not going to show you those. And then you have here your checking, spell checking and grammar. It does not have a spell check built into it like REEDSY does, but you can either use your browser's spell checker. I use Edge, but you probably use Chrome if you're like most people. Or you can add Grammarly if you want to, and that. So you can get it in there. It just doesn't come with it. This is kind of cool. You can dictate if you want to. So if I come over here, should be appearing eventually on the page. There you go. So it's not super fast and it's not real time. I don't dictate myself, so I don't know how well it does with normal speaking, but it is a feature and it is available in the free version. But you can see right there, there's a bit of lag, and I don't know how error-free it is. You can pause it and you can also stop it. The other one is a text reader.
Dictation should be appearing eventually. Dictation should be appearing eventually. On the page there you go. So it's not super fast and it's not real time. I don't dictate myself.
So you can see you can actually read that back, and that's a cool feature. So I find that useful when trying to find missing words or double words and things like that, or stuff that doesn't sound natural. I use that as part of my proofing process, and that is a feature that is built into the free version. The paid version has better quality voice, just so you know. You also have the option, and this is really cool. I like this a lot. You have the option to highlight your text and not your text, excuse me, your dialogue. So you can find out where every piece of dialogue is, and it toggles on and off. I like that a lot. You can also change your theme. That's not really a part of the writing tool, but some people get headaches with bright themes, so you can switch to dark mode if you want to. And then this last little feature right down here allows you to customize your word list. And what that does when you do that, when you're running a report, these words will appear in there. Do the same thing. You can exclude certain words. So if you want words not to be included, you can add those. And then you can also add your character names. And this is all for reporting. So you have a lot of tools available to you. It's a really robust and functional uh, word processor. And I'll be honest with you, I would have no problem writing in this, except for I do have some trouble with the formatting. When I'm trying to do formatting, it doesn't always apply the formats that I want, the way that I want them to. It's a little frustrating, but that's not necessarily AutoCrit's fault. That's the problem I've seen before with web-based applications. So that may be something outside their control. All right, let's talk about plotting and planning. So your planning is reached on these top menus. You see you have a lot up here. I'll get to these in a little bit. So you have planning here, and on the other side you have publishing. They kind of bookmark the reports that go in between. But planning is accessed through right here. And you have two choices when you click on it. You have fiction story builder and nonfiction story builder. So you may have some content already. If you have content already, it's going to take that content and it's going to work with that. If you are writing a new book from scratch, all these fields will appear blank. But let's look at fiction story building since I am doing that. So like I said, if you were working with a fresh blank template where you haven't typed a word yet, these fields will be empty. But since my story is already in there, and I'm working with a first draft of The Whisper of God. This is from months ago, but I picked it for a reason, and that's because it's not perfect. So you can see the planning tools and the reporting tools in action. So the first thing is the plotting and planning tools are integrally tied to the reporting tools, and you'll see what I'm talking about in a little bit. But your fiction story building has four basic areas, and you can either scroll down to get to all the different basic areas, or you can click on these icons up here. So you have your story premise, you have world building, you have character building, and then you have your beat sheet. And inside those, each one of those are different subcategories. So if we look at story premise, we have here the premise, of course, and this reads off the premise of the story. And then you have what is the target genre and what are the target tropes, and then you can actually say what kind of analyze my story premise. These are all things that you can do. And if you hover over here, you have the option to analyze. This is, you can copy from a backwards blueprint if you want. You can copy to the clipboard, you can create a note, or you can delete what's in there. It won't delete this category, but it'll delete what's in there. So for instance, if I go up here and I hit delete on this, it clears that out. So let's say I want to review my story premise again. I'm just going to go ahead and click on that. I can auto generate a new idea, or I can auto generate uh, based on my text. So this is the story premise. Let's do it based on text. So this is helping you kind of plot out. It's giving you suggestions. So this was based on the text that was already in there, and it's giving you ideas of how you might do stuff. So here might be an unexpected plot twist. And then tropes. And if you're not sure what it's referring to, just hovering over these information icons tells you. Describe recurring themes or motifs. So let's actually generate this auto generate based upon my text. So we'll see what my motifs or my tropes are for this book. There's a redemption arc, which is true. There's a chosen one arc, which is true. There's a betrayal and trust issue. This is true. All these things are in here. And it's important to realize that this is done and being generated by a very sophisticated AI that AutoCrit has built. And it's hit all my tropes. These tropes are in there. So it actually is analyzed that and says you can focus and build on these. So in the planning part, this might be something you want to focus on, maybe the redemption arc. I wouldn't focus on all of them. You could definitely touch on all of them, but maybe you're going to focus on the redemption arc more than the light versus darkness. But this gives you ideas that you can work with. As you can see the building here. Then world building, we go in here using my geography. That's one. General flora and fauna. I don't really describe that a lot, but it can, let's say I want to go into more detail with what my world looks like, because I don't have a lot of detail in there. I can click on that and see what it recommends. So frostbark trees, and it's actually creating things for me. If you'll notice, it's not just saying this, it's saying it's naming them. Um, but it's creating these things that I could put into my world if I want. I don't have to use them. It's just suggesting them. So for if you're a plotter or if you're a pantser, and if you don't know the difference between those, a plotter is somebody who kind of sits down and plans everything out with meticulous detail before they get into the story. And a pantser is somebody who, that's me, who just kind of sits down and writes. But sometimes there's not a lot of detail, and I try to think about things to add later in the story. And having a tool like what is an AutoCrit allows me to do that to a greater degree. So plotters and pantsers, I think, could both benefit from this tool. It's got a lot of cool stuff. This is the planning one. Okay, let's go back to the laptop. You can also look at characters, and if you want to get advice of what to do. So it tells you what his wants are, what his skills and flaws are. These are things that are suggestions and recommendations to help flesh out and build your character a bit more. Then you have your beat sheet, which is cool. You can pick what you want. So you can kind of figure out where you want to be in there. And that's your plotting and your planning. Has something for nonfiction story building as well, but it's going to focus on different things. I don't know if you're a nonfiction writer. Most of you here, I assume, are fiction writers, but that's the advantage. AutoCrit allows you to do both. So something to think about. I'll talk more about the blueprint button later. Since analytics is tied really closely to the plotting, we're going to actually look at that next. And let's just click on analysis right here. And the first thing you'll notice once you get into the analysis, let me real quick pause here for a second. So one of the things that AutoCrit allows for is a really sophisticated analysis tool that does more than just like do word count. So it will actually analyze your stylistic progression of story, plot lines, foreshadowing, things like that. And it will also analyze the technical side. So in addition to stylistically, it analyzes technically what's wrong. So overuse of adverbs, repeated words, passive language versus active language, things like that. So it's got a lot of, I mean, I'm going to show you in a second. I'm not going to go into all of them, but it has a lot of different categories. So this category here has four tool types, and then pacing has four, and then dialogue has three, and then Strong writing has like, what is that, 6 or 7. Word choice, even more. Repetition, a few. So these are all your different kinds of reports. Let me close this off to the side so we have more room to see. These are all the different reports. You have readability, inspiration. So you have probably a good 30, 20 or 30 reports that are available to you that you can dive into. We're going to be focusing on analysis here in just a second, and then inspiration in a second more. Because I am in fiction, that's the one I'll pick. And when I click on the fiction analyzer, it comes over here and pops this up. I've already run it for the sake of speed because it does take a while for it to build all this, but you'll see here it gives you an overall breakdown of the synopsis. So you can look at your chapters here and you see each one of them. You can refresh them if you want to. Now, these haven't changed, these have, so I can actually update that since there was a change and it will rescan it for me. Or you can just click on this one right here and it will generate the analysis. All of these give you the ability to generate the analysis and do it again. And if you do that again, you will get something different, and then you're into the next one. And what you can do up here, if you don't want to look at all of those, you do have the option to choose between which ones you want to see. As you can see, there's a lot of different ones. Then you have an overall, which is kind of a high level summary of everything. You can do the same thing if you just want to look at your characters. You can look at all your characters and see who they are and what their desires are, their needs, their flaws. And then you have your backwards blueprint, and you can analyze all of this or maybe just the empty fields. And once it does that, it takes several minutes, but it basically gives you a blueprint for your story. And you can actually take this blueprint and apply it to your other stories. And that's where you can actually use that in the creation process. If you remember for the planning, there was an option in planning for building from blueprint. So as you're beginning to see, planning and analytics are closely tied together. Summary report is going to be your stylistic report. See right here, I got a pretty good score, 79. I want to get it higher, but I'll show you my pacing and momentum right here. It's going to show you the strong writing, the word choice, repetition. So it shows you all those sorts of things. Now these are general categories, and if you go down, you can see I've got pacing and momentum, but then in here I have more subcategories. These things all affect my pacing, and if I want a more detailed examination of them, and I picked pacing because I'm usually worse on pacing because I do a lot of exposition that I have to go fix later. I can go in here and look at my slow paced paragraphs, and I can actually run the report for that. So you have your categorical reports like analysis and pacing and dialogue. And then under those, you have subcategories. And then in those sub reports, you have even more sub reports. So you're getting into so many reports that allow you to be productive and find flaws in your writing and tighten it up. So the average in an academic, and I'm not academic, so I'll need to fix that, is 379. So I'm going to go ahead and change that. And now it's going to reevaluate that based upon fantasy. You'll see I dropped down from a 79.9 to a 75.6, and my pacing and momentum fell from I think it was 69 down to 42 because I'm now working in fantasy, not academic, and the metrics change for that. So you can actually pick what kind of genre. So I come down here and look at my pacing, which is not really good, and I want to fix my paragraphs that are long, and I can just go in here and I can just click on the paragraph that I need to fix, and there it is. And you can see that's a long paragraph, and maybe I can make this a little bit more action centered. And so that helps a lot because it gives me what I need as far as finding stylistic problems that might be affecting my book. Being able to clean up a lot of stuff yourself is going to save you both time and money if you do hire an editor to look at your work. So that's something to take in and bear in mind. So publishing is the last category over here after all your reports, and you just click on that. And you're going to see two buttons when you go in there. You'll see book details and styles and themes. Book details is for your front matter, such as copyright, title page, table of contents. Let's click on that. You'll see what I'm talking about. You can see title page, copyright, and table of contents right there. And the details is kind of for metadata. So inside that, you're going to have an option for your cover art, which is right here, your book cover. Then you have book title and subtitle, author, brief description right down here. You have a place for subjects, so you can put in some different kind of subjects that are going to be in there. Your publisher's name, if you have one, the ISBNs you can use, I don't know why you use all four. You just need one for ebook and one for print, and not even necessarily ebook, but you can do one for print, one for ebook, one for Google Books, and one for Amazon. So the title page, you have the option to generate a title page on export, and it will generate it from what you've made. If you uncheck that box, then you'll just make one in here. And then copyright information. REEDSY doesn't give you a choice for copyright. You just go with their standard disclaimer for copyright, but you can create your own copyright in here and put what you want. And then table of contents, you can generate a table of contents, or you can uncheck this. And when you do that, you won't have a table of contents at all. And if you just have chapter numbers and not chapter titles, there's not really a need for a table of contents. All right. Let's actually look at the other tab here real fast. Style and theme. And you actually have three tabs here. You have templates, you have active settings, and you have preview and publish. You can actually create your own themes or your own templates. And those are, when you do that, you'll be basically given all the same things you normally have over here under active settings, but it saves it to a theme that you can use again in the future. You have the option to maintain fonts in the document, or you can set new fonts for export. All of these things are configurable in here. And like I said, you can save them to a theme so you can reuse them if you want to. So you have a lot more flexibility and versatility than you had under REEDSY. The other thing that you can do is you can change your header layouts for header and footer. With REEDSY, you only got a chapter title at the top of the page and you got a page number at the bottom. Both were centered. Here you can choose a little more variety if you want. And then your trim sizes, as where REEDSY had 4, you have 7. And so it gives you a little bit more option there for how you want the output for your print books to be. And then you can, if you want to, you can come over here and preview and see what it looks like and then publish it. So you can kind of get an idea. REEDSY didn't give us this because we don't really have any formatting choices. REEDSY just does what it does. You have a community, which I think is kind of nice. You can visit with other writers. You have an academy, just like REEDSY. They have courses that you can take, and they don't have as many, but they do have a few. But you'll notice these focus more, whereas REEDSY was business oriented. The courses here tend to be writing oriented. How do you improve your craft? How do you learn like foreshadowing, love scenes? They do have some business ones like how to launch your book, but for the most part, they deal with writing. Unlike REEDSY, also these are internally produced inside of AUTOCRIT. They make these themselves. They're not made by third parties. Then you have your author services. This is the same thing. REEDSY has a bunch of different services like cover design and editing and marketing and promotion. Again, REEDSY does all of theirs through third party, but AUTOCRIT does theirs internally, and they don't have as many. So you only have like 5 total. And you see they're also again focused on writing, how to make your book better. So you have chapter critique, you have story doctor, book cover, story inspection, and then they do have a pitch perfect appraisal. So it tells you how to do a query letter and whatnot like that, but they don't have as many. These are some of the things that I actually like about AutoCrit. It has a really good word processor with a lot of additional things like like you said, like the dictation tool and the ability to highlight your dialogue. It has, and I mean, just really in-depth reporting tools that give a tremendous level of feedback on story structure and plotting and analysis. In addition to that, it recommends suggestions. It can get you unstuck from writer's block. It can give you ideas of how to tighten your story or give you uh, inspiration if you don't know what to do next. So that ties into the plotting tool, which is a very robust plotting tool. It gives you a lot of categories for plot lines, world building, and again, it will recommend things for you. So that's actually really cool. You can trigger prompts for ideas. It is web-based, so it does work on Windows, Mac, and Chromebook, but it also will work offline. It does have customizable templates for formatting, which REEDSY did not. I like that. And you have a lot more formatting options, both for publishing and for including metadata into your EPUB. You can export to multiple formats: Word, PDF, EPUB, text, and RTF. And this is something cool that I like about it. You have the ability to export. When you export, each chapter is its own file. So that's useful for if you're working with a layout and design tool like Adobe InDesign. You can just bring in one chapter at a time to work with, and the program works better when you do that. It has a really robust free version. That's a definite plus. Professional versions even more robust with better quality tools and discounts on the courses that they offer. The fact that I can bookmark a section or a chapter, drop a note in about what I want to do with it, and then I can keep on with my flow of my story writing of the creative process, but be able to come back to it and find it easily is pretty cool. Some of the things I don't like is it does have limited formatting options to a full blown, and you'd expect this, but to something like AutoCrit compared to Adobe InDesign or Scribus, which is an open source version of InDesign. It can't do as much, but that's to be expected for the most part. It does have limited trim sizes. There's a lot more trim sizes, but it does have the most common ones, so I'll give it credit for that. Something to be aware of. I don't know if it's necessarily a con, but it can be. With all the reports, you can get easily overwhelmed and not know what to do and get caught up in that, and that it can be a rabbit hole you go down, and you end up doing reports instead of doing writing. So that's a potential trap. The other thing is if you're not as an experienced a writer, it's very easy to lose your voice by following all the suggestions that you get from the reports. The other thing I've noticed with an older computer or a computer with less memory, the word processor is sluggish, it lags, and sometimes it doesn't work the way you want it to. I did find also when working in it, I would be perfectly comfortable writing from first draft to final draft inside the word processor. It's powerful enough that you could do that with the plotting tools and everything. But I have noticed with the formatting, like bold and italic and underline, they don't always take when you apply them, or they spill over into other words. So it doesn't work exactly as expected. It is expensive on a recurring subscription, $30 a month, that's $360 a year, but not everybody has the money to drop $180 on a program, so I can in my opinion, it's expensive because, uh, that 30 bucks is a lot. I would like to see it as, like, just 15 bucks a month, and, if you get the full lump sum one, then you get discounts on the courses or something like that. Because $180 is a lot to drop on something, especially if money's tight. There is no integrated spell check, like I said, or grammar check, but you can use what is in the browser. Chapter management. Oh, I didn't go over chapter management. Let me show you that real fast. Chapter management is managed up here on the top. You can add chapters up here, but they're not to the left. I like having them visible. There's no option to pin that. You can do all the same stuff. You can move these around if you want to. You can lift them up and move them around if you want to. You can analyze by chapter, and you can add chapters and you can subtract chapters. But I find this awkward having to go in here to get to my chapters. But it does give you, it can be a plus or a bonus depending on how you like to work. I like having the chapters off to the side. You might not like it, so it does provide for more distraction. So I don't know, it's a negative or a positive, it just depends on you. It may be a negative not to have them, for me it is, but maybe not having that gives you less distracted writing, and so it may be a positive for you. I would say that it's probably best for people who wanna do a really deep dive on their writing, get a lot of analysis, a lot of feedback. It's great for people who do a lot of meticulous plotting, so you're plotters, but I think it's good for pantsters as well. I'm a pretty heavy pantster, which means I need a lot of help in trying to tighten my stories up after I get them down. And so I think it would be good for both plotters and pantsters because it can help you tighten the story, help you find opportunities to deepen the plot or add layers of complexity. It's hard to keep those things straight in your head when you're a pantster. Its services are limited, but they do focus on the craft of writing. So if you want to kind of increase your writing ability, those might be an option for you as well. But all the content's made by AutoCrit. So let's look at the last one now, and that's going to be Atticus. Let me switch to the laptop. So the first thing about Atticus, it is web-based, but it has the ability, if you did notice, I launched it from my taskbar. It has the ability to be added as an application. It even has a link right up here that allows you to install it as an app, so you can run it like you would Microsoft Word, or any other program that you've installed on your computer. That's something I like. It is a pretty easy to navigate. The front page is really simple. You got your upload a book, start a new book, or create a box set, and then you have your books you're working on right here, and then you have what are called master pages. I'll talk more about those later, and then you have a tutorial. So I like the fact that it's really simple. But let's actually look at the word processor. I'll go ahead and open up the Whisper of God right here. You got a pretty straightforward word processor. It's minimalist in design. I like that about it. There are some quick formatting tools that you can use. Your chapters are on the left, which is where I like them. You have your front matter, you have options to add new chapters, but as you can see, this is nice and clean. And I think that's important for a word processor that you're writing in. You have your formatting options up on top. You don't have fonts available in here, not because you only have one choice of font, but because you're going to be picking your fonts from somewhere else. One thing that is unique that is in here that's not in the other two is this little gear over here, which allows you to set some settings on the chapter that you're currently in. It's a formatting function, so we'll talk about formatting a little bit later, but you can do things like hiding a chapter image, and you can add a chapter image in here as well. You can hide the chapter heading, page numbers, footers. You can hide the formatting for the first sentence. So if you have a drop cap, you can eliminate it from this chapter if that's what you want to do. You can hide it from the table of contents. So if this is something you don't want to appear in the table of contents, you can do that. And you can invert the text color. So instead of being black on white, you can make it white on black. And there's a reason why you'd want to do that. I'll talk more about that later. You have your collaboration, you have your goals, and then you have smart quotes, which allows you to scan through your chapter and find inconsistent quotation marks. So you can make them all either curly or straight. AUTOCRIT focuses heavily on word processing, analyzing, and plotting. So it has a much more robust word processor, but this one gets the job done. It doesn't have spell checker, but because it's a web-based application, you can use whatever your browser uses, like Grammarly or ProWriting Aid. Let's talk about plotting and planning. Won't take very long. It doesn't have any. Basically, short of setting goals for your writing, just basically a word processor, and that's about it. You could write your whole book in here, especially if you're a pantser and you don't really do a lot of plotting. But I would say that it's probably better designed for a nearly finished book because the publishing typesetting are where its strengths are. So if we actually go in here, we actually look at the oh, I forgot to say you can do your metadata. Well, this ties in. This is where you would do your metadata for your ebooks. You put in the title, the subtitle, right here, your author, any contributing authors, and then your project. This is for organizing it. It's not part of the metadata, but it just helps Atticus know where to stick your book and projects. You can put in your English language and this is kind of cool. I like this. You can determine where the ebook starts. Does it start on the full page image? Does it start at the title page, the copyright? So you can actually implant in their instructions for when they open their ebook where it starts the book. Kind of a cool feature. Your publisher details, we talked about publishers, but that's also going to be where you find your ISBN. And talk about formatting. Now, when we go into formatting, we're talking about typesetting for layout and design of the interior. And the first thing you'll notice here is I have a lot of templates. There's about 17 to 20 pre-formatted templates. I don't remember the exact number. I've created some of my own, so I can't remember which ones I created and which ones come with it, but it's a fair number and it's more than you're going to get with either REEDSY or AUTOCRIT. You can take any of these templates and you can begin with them as a foundation and tweak them however you want. You can also just create a new theme from scratch. You'll notice the previewer showed up over here automatically, so you can kind of see what your template is going to look like as you are applying changes to it. And you can go with print, or you can just look what the iPad is or whatever. If I click on one of these, you see it changes over here. So I have a different one. So you can quickly apply these. And since I'm writing a series, I took one template and they're all basically the same. The only thing that really changes is the iconography that I use. So I come in here, and I come in here, and I come in my series. Each has its own iconography, but all I had to do is go there and change that one thing, and then I can just apply it to whichever book I'm working on. So The Whisper of God is my current title, and I'm going to go down here, click on these three ellipses. I can duplicate it if I want to, which is how I got all these others. I can rename it if I want to. I can delete it, or I can just edit it. So I go into it and I edit it, and the first thing you're going to notice is you have a lot more things that are available to you. This is actually a really good tool for formatting and layout. If you've seen my other video on Scribus, then you know that I can go and do my own typesetting. But to be honest with you, typesetting takes a lot of time. For me to typeset a book takes probably, depending on the book and how many chapters, it can take me upwards of 10 or 12 or 13 hours. So it can take me several days to go through it. That's time taken away from writing or marketing, just something to be aware of. I actually have a lot of different features, but this is just in one. So I have chapter heading, paragraph, subheading, scene break, notes, print layout. These are all different categories that I can configure. So I can pick my font for my chapter header and my chapter number. So my chapter number right up there. I can pick my fonts. And I can also do the same thing for the chapter title. I can pick fonts for the chapter title and for the chapter subtitle. I can also determine the position where I want the image to be. I can have a chapter image, I can turn it on and off. And then I can also determine if I want to do individual chapter images, and I set those in the word processor. If I come back here to the word processor, I can add a chapter image right here. And if I add individual chapter images in here, I can decide instead of using one standard chapter image across the whole book, I can choose to have each chapter use the image that I embedded in there. I can actually decide how big I want the chapter image to be. I can determine where I want it to be. Do I want it to be above all of that? Do I want it to be between the chapter number and the chapter title? Or if I want to have my image be like a whole page image, actually, I think, let me do this. Let me discard. So there you go. This is an example of what you can do, and you can kind of see what that does for us and that kind of control. I can't do that with AutoCrit. I can't do that with REEDSY. Real fast, guys, if you want to check it out, Book Vault has the ability to drop full color pages anywhere in your book. It's a little bit more expensive, but not much. I think it's about $1 more is what I pay for it, but it allows me to put in a full color map. Or if I want to have my anthology to have this really startling image that you turn to and it's full color, I can do that. But this is on par with Adobe InDesign with what I can do. It comes so close that the difference is probably not going to be noticed by anybody but a professional typesetter. I know it because I know what I can do with Scribus and I know what I can't do in here. But to be honest with you, there's very little that I can do in a program like Adobe InDesign as opposed to what I can do here. My print layout right here, this is going to be focused on what I want my inside margin and my outside margin, or what is sometimes called the gutter, to be, what I want my indents to be, how big do I want them to go in, so 0.15 inches, what I want them to be justified on the left-hand side and the right-hand side, and whether I want to use hyphens to kind of clean up the justification. I can choose to have it eliminate widows and orphans. Those are partial sentences or sometimes just a word that's on one page and nothing else. I can do a balanced page spread, which determines uh, how the text falls on the last pages of a chapter, whether some chapters might have like 2 or 3 sentences, some might have like 2 paragraphs. This kind of tries to even them out, or you can try for the best of the both. I go for widows and orphans. You have your typography, and this is where you're going to do your body fonts. This is why you don't have that in the word processor. You don't have this option in REEDSY. You can't set the body font. You just get what they give you. But in here, I can choose what I want my body font to be. It is limited to a small set of fonts that are available and licensed through Atticus. And then I can do my header and footer, and I can pick what I want for where I want my pagination to go and where I want my header for chapter title and whatnot. And then I have my trim sizes, and I have a lot more trim sizes that I did with either AutoCrit or REEDSY, which is pretty cool. One thing I forgot to show you guys, when we go into chapter heading, I've talked about how on AutoCrit and inside of the body text, we have just a limited number of fonts available to us. But for the chapter headings, I actually have access to just the standard ones that are built in there, but I can take and I can actually add additional fonts by going to a library of almost 1,600 fonts that I can use for my print books. That is staggering. That's very hard to do for online publishing because you have to license fonts. These are Google fonts, and Atticus got a license to use Google fonts for the headers, for the chapters, for the subchapters. Up here, these 3 at the top, those are fonts that I added from Google's library. Then when you're done, you just export it as a PDF or an EPUB file. So Atticus is, I mean, it's pretty clear what Atticus is really good for, and it's layout and design. I can, like I said, I can get finer detail and finer control using a dedicated program for layout and design like Adobe InDesign. But to be honest with you, the level that you get with Atticus is close enough that the amount of time it saves me, that little extra 3 to 5% that I can squeeze out of InDesign is not worth it. And I'm gonna show you, let me show you why. I'm gonna just talk about it. So I mentioned before it could take me 10 or 12 hours. So I've got my book picked out here. I've got the template. I've already designed it and I'm ready. And bear in mind that I only made one template at the beginning for the rune that binds. And then I just duplicated it and changed the iconography. That's all I do. So making these new templates, the first one took me maybe an hour to do the first template as I tweaked it and got it the way I wanted, which is still significantly less than the 10 hours it takes me to do a whole book. And then I come down here, I export to PDF. Remember, 10 hours, 10 to 12 hours to generate a ready to go PDF file to upload. And I haven't paused it. I'm not speeding up. I'm talking so you can see how long it takes for me to get there. It does take a little bit of time. It is taking a few minutes and it's done. So maybe a minute. You can see this looks good. And that's 2 or 3 days worth of work that's been saved because I can't do it straight hours straight. It will burn your brain out. So I do like 2 hours a day doing layout and design on that particular book. And so you're looking at for 10 or 12 hours, 5 to 6 days, a week. And I did it in, what is that? Probably an hour to do the initial layout for the template. And that's only 1 hour for the first one because like I said, I just duplicated it. So maybe an hour and 5 or 10 minutes. And I have content that's ready to go in. Now, one thing that I haven't talked about, and I can't believe I forgot this, guys, I'm gonna jump back. I said it was best for layout and design. You can write your book in Atticus. It is a basic word processor, but what I forgot to mention, let's go full laptop here. Inside the actual book, down here, I have appendices right here. So these are my appendices. This is my glossary for the language in the book. Close that. If I add something in here, well, I'm gonna have 4 books for the series by the time I'm done. What the master pages do is it allows me to keep every book that has this master page in it synced up. So if I go in and make a change here, apply the changes, and it's gonna ask me, do I want to apply to all books that use this saved master page or just to this book? And if I say all books, after a second, it'll say it's been applied successfully. If I go back to my books, my other books that have that, let's go to the rune that binds, and you'll see it's got to make all changes right there. It's got it right there. I'm gonna go ahead and delete it, apply the changes. So master pages are really useful if you want to have stuff across consistent. Maybe it's your author's books, other books you've written. Maybe you have a standardized copyright page and you just want to have to reproduce it every time. It allows you to update it whenever you want to and then apply it across all of your books at the same time. They're really useful. I've never seen anybody else that does that. But like I said, this is really something that was probably going to be used for someone who's pretty much done with their book. They might want to make some final last minute tweaks here and they can put that in there. But its word processor is basic enough that you can use it to edit and tweak and make little changes. But its main function is as a layout and design tool, which makes it really easy to keep your books up to date, make changes to them. And the fact that your print books and ebooks look stylistically similar, I think is a bonus. So here's some of the things that I think are the pros. It's easy to navigate. It's a very easy interface. You saw that. There's a one-time cost. It is expensive, the $147, but it's not a recurring subscription fee. So that's kind of nice. They do have a 30-day money-back guarantee, so if it doesn't work for you, you can get your money back. It does work offline, and because it is a web-based application, even though you can install it like a normal program, it's still web-based, which means it runs on Chrome, it runs on MacBook, it runs on PC. So that's really nice. It has incredibly powerful typesetting, layout and design capabilities that are on par with professional grade services. You can create box sets. So if you have a series, you can put all your books together in a box set. I just mentioned the master pages with the cross linking. You have access to thousands of fonts for chapter headings, which no one else has as far as I know. And then you can export it as a PDF and EPUB and also as a docx file. It does allow for collaboration, so you can have other people work with it. So when you get your book done and you want to collaborate with an editor or maybe another author, you can do that. It does act as a standalone app, and it does have comprehensive tutorials. There is goal tracking for writing. That's about how many days you want to write a day and how many words you want to put down. The biggest pro for me is the amount of time it saves me for layout and design. It's just such a time saver. I love this program, guys. I said I wasn't going to endorse anyone, and this may not work for you, but this is if you're looking for a really good layout and design program for EPUB. I don't use Kindle Create anymore. I don't use Scribus. I had to use two programs. I had to do, and I talked about the 10 or 12 hours. That was for one book. That was for Scribus. And that's for the print book. Well, I had to do another 5 or 6 hours for the ebook. So you're looking at 20 hours. You're looking at 10 or 12 days worth of work um, for me to get my books ready because I had to do the layout for the EPUB and then I had to do a layout for the print book. Hours spent, which I can now do it in literally a couple of minutes. It is the best money I've ever spent. Now, that's not to say it's perfect. There is no planning or plotting function. There's no built-in spell grammar checker. You can use Pro Writing Aid or Grammarly. I use Pro Writing Aid. The one thing to be really careful about, this has caused me a lot of grief, and it has taken back some of those hours that I've gained. If you're working on two, and they don't make this clear, but if you're working on two different computers, so I have a tablet, I showed you my tablet earlier that I take with me and I can write anywhere. And then I come home and I work on my desktop. If I have been working on the same book in Atticus that I'm working on in my desktop, I can corrupt my files because they're syncing and the syncs corrupt the file, and I've it's been a pain, and the folks at Atticus were really good about restoring it for me, but it did cause some corruption. So that's something that is definitely a downside. You have to log out correctly, and then you go up to your profile and choose log out. And if you don't do that, it doesn't sync, and then they're fighting with each other. Sometimes when you're loading it, it doesn't actually load, and you have to hit Control Shift R to get it to refresh. And there's absolutely no writing or feedback or analytics. I can live with that. AutoCrit is there. I use it. I can throw my document in AutoCrit to get it ready. And when I've got it where I want it to be, then I load it into Atticus and I start doing my layout and design. And it takes me almost no time to do that. Like I said, I've used all three platforms. I think there's something about each that I like. I really like REEDSY's author services. I've used some of them and to good effect. I've spent money on all three, but the ones I spend most of my time on are AutoCrit and Atticus. AutoCrit because it gives me the ability to really analyze my writing and find weak spots and add layers of complexity. So the technical and stylistic reports are really powerful and useful. My only warning on that is don't let them overwhelm your own voice. It's okay to have adverbs. It's okay to have longer paragraphs and sentences. It's okay to have slow pacing sometimes. You just have to know, you have to know enough about writing to be able to say no to Atticus, is what I'm saying. And then I love, not Atticus, sorry, AutoCrit. And then I love Atticus because of just how good a job it does for typesetting, for internal layout and design, getting my books ready and the time it saves me. If you have any questions, guys, drop them in the comments below. Any comments, drop them in the comments below. Please remember to subscribe and like. And guys, remember to write every day, even if it's just one word. Habit makes things happen. So if you want to get published, get into the habit of writing every day.